Huh.
Hey guys, it's Dane at Jonah Guitars, and I got a brand new build series I'm going to start uploading. It's about this guy right here, the GECKO, and all of the whole process of building will be covered. It's going to be a very complete series. So I hope you join me, and we'll see you there. So we've got the walnut Nighthawk, walnut cap, mahogany back, maple center strap on that thing. And so I'm going to do, it's got the, I'm not sure how big the hole for the switch has to be. I'm kind of thinking, this is not a Les Paul, but I'm thinking standard Les Paul kind of application here where you've got the three-way up here. Although I was just looking at the, they call it a freeway switch on Stumax. It's 6 position. It looks like a regular three-way Gibson type switch though, so I'm thinking that might be kind of cool depending on what I end up with for pickups. Yeah, I don't have to decide on that yet. So, but if I decide to go, you know, previous builds, the P90s I mentioned before that I use on my guitar are actually split. They're coil taps, so that even though it's a single coil, it shunts down or grounds out half the coil, or you know, whatever percentage of the coil it actually affects. But so I have a much, I shouldn't say much, I have a more standard, maybe a single coil sound when they're split, and then the full P90 sound when they're not. John at Guitar Attack also makes, well, he makes a lot of kinds of pickups, but he wound those P90s for me. He calls them P45s. And then also the last guitar, the Nighthawk I built previous, had a coil humbucker, double coil, dual coil pickup that splits, but when it splits, it sounds more authentic to a single coil as well. So a lot of times on a double coil, when you split it, they just sound really thin. Because the single coil, that, you know, half of a humbucker isn't as beefy as a single coil by itself. So anyway, he developed a build, a wind that sounds more single coil and then full on humbucker when it's not split. So I may end up using, you know, either of those types of options. I've also considered using a standard three-way and then using maybe a third volume, third control pot volume tone, and then maybe a blender in order to go back and forth there. I'd originally considered doing just a blender and not a switch, but I know when I'm playing, I like to be able to get to where I'm going and not be, you know, fiddling around with knobs. I've even got push-pull pots on guitars that I don't really like, because instead of just flipping a switch to split a coil or you know, or go back to full humbucking or whatever. I'd much rather use a mini switch myself, toggle something easy to hit in the fly, rather than, you know, pulling a knob up or down. May sound nitpicky, but when I'm playing, I got to think about what I'm playing, because I don't multitask well. So anyway, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. At any rate, so don't know what size this hole is going to be. I looked at some plans I had for a Les Paul, and it showed that it was a 41 millimeter hole, you know, going through the body, and my inch and 3/8 is basically a 34 millimeter, something like that. So it's a little smaller. So I still haven't. I don't have a bit bigger than that, I don't think. I'd have to look around, but I decided that I could drill this from the back when I find out. I went ahead and drilled through with an 1/8 inch pilot bit, so I have everything will be lined up. So all I have to do is drill from the back when I do figure out what size the hole is going to be, and that won't be an issue. So going to just do a quick handstand here, just to open up drain. This thing's been laying, you know, for a week since I sanded it, or maybe even a little longer than that, and just don't like to glue up wood with, it's had a chance to oxidize, or, you know, depending on the type of wood, get oily or whatever. And don't know how oily. Walnut's not striking me as that oily of a wood, but I'm going to sand it and then dust it off, and then even wipe it with lacquer thinner. In this case, I was going through the acetone, which is pretty much the same thing, and the lacquer thinner came out of the cabinet. So that's what it is. I got to go grab a brush. All right. So I've got that sanded up. I'm going to sand this mahogany. Now, you guys have never seen or used this sort of thing. It's just a standard belt sanding belt. This is a 4x24. You just cut yourself a block, plywood block in this case. That's the right dimension to stretch the belt over, and then you just stretch the belt over it, and you can see there, once it's once you wear it out, it's easy enough just to get a new belt, throw it on there. Most guys have a belt sander, so whatever size belt sander you have, just buy you some extra belts and make a block. It's pretty handy to have, as you can see. So, dusting this thing out. I've got, don't always use locating pins. Sometimes I just drill a hole and put a screw in where I know I'm going to have a route later. And then, you know, once it's all lined up and screwed down and clamped, just back the screws out, do all your routing. Just happen to decide to use locating pins this time. So I don't have to worry about it going all over the place. It's always a good idea to pre-assemble and pre-clamp everything. To be quite honest, I don't typically do that. There's nothing terribly technical about this particular glue up that would cause me to need to Make sure everything's going to be set up right and preset all my clamps to the right size. Got a pile of clamps laying here. Cleaning out my glue bottle. Got a pile of clamps with a bunch of clamping cauls, little pieces of MDF block. Just scrap that I chopped up just for that purpose, and not really worried about the face of the guitar because it's walnut, but the back is mahogany and it'll dent with clamp pressure, and I don't want to steam dents out or be chasing that around later, so just take a little precaution with the clamping. Anyway, some glue on this thing. I got a notch scraper in here somewhere that I usually go over it with, just to smear glue around, and oh, there's a piece of hard glue laying there from cleaning out the tip. Notch scraper it so as I spread the glue it leaves a little, a ridge of glue up, so that it leaves me a 1/16 inch mound of glue, even though it's all spread out. Right there. Kind of do that and then go around and just fill in wherever it doesn't quite cover. Tripping over clamps. Alright, we need some more. Sure, if you watch very many people gluing stuff up, they always emphasize that you can't get too much glue in there, and you can't. But you can, of course, have a lot of squeeze out to deal with and waste glue. And a lot of people glue both surfaces. Certain instances that's probably not a bad idea, but in this case, and I'm going to have plenty of glue on this one surface. I'm not going to have to worry about it. Don't want to fill my wire channel up with glue and then have issues. Oh, I totally spazzed out. Well, I'm not too worried about the mahogany anyway, but I was going to wipe that walnut down with lacquer thinner, and I jumped right to gluing this up. So, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe the walnut. You can see that even after I break this over with the notch scraper, that it fills itself back in and has a pretty solid coat of glue on it. And there again, this is what I'm saying, it's plenty of glue without glue on both sides, both halves of this joint. So alrighty then. Let that stand for seconds while I'm wiping this other part down. doing this just as a precaution. Make sure there's nothing on here that's going to keep glue from sticking to this walnut. Probably not an issue with walnut. I know teak for one, you definitely want to do that with. I did it with my Paduke and any other kind of wood that I really, don't have years and years of experience messing with. Paduke and Wingay, even Sapelli are fairly new woods for me, last 5 years or so. Get rid of this. This doesn't take any time at all to dry. This glue looks pretty good. All right. All right, so not that the guide pins need to be necessarily glued down, but that's going to do it anyway, just for kicks and giggles. Well, it's clamped. I'm going to take a chisel and just go around the edge of this thing and, peel off some of this glue, and then I'll throw some more little clamps in there, the squeeze clamps, but I think for the most part we're good. So I'm going to sign off. All right, so this is next day. Clamps are coming off the body. I don't know. I don't know if you can be able to see enough definition on the camera or not to tell. It just kind of, it's all sideways and weird, looking like it's going to take off. Looks like some kind of weird Millennium Falcon kind of thing going on. Anyway. Chisel, and I got scraped most of the glue down to the walnut. The walnut is the top, and we already routed it down to the template, so it's the actual guitar size. So now when I route the back, the mahogany part of the body will be the mahogany is proud of the walnut right now. So I'm going to go around this with a chisel, clean up what little bit of glue I couldn't get, like where it's under the clamps. Oh, I'm totally out of the screen. Got a nice wicked sharp piece of glue right there that was under a clamp. So I'm going to go fiddle around, scrape some of that off, and then set up over at the router. and bring you back for that. All right, we're back on, and so did a little bit of cleanup on the body. Got got some glue off the edge there so that as the bearing follows the actual top of the guitar now, which is serving as a template, it'll roll fairly true. This whole thing is going to get sanded and all that as well. So once again, as I mentioned before, when you're routing, the bit is turning the cutter, the sharp edge of the cutter is turning that way. So if you were in here, you'd risk a lot more. You have a lot more risk of pullout hitting it from this direction going this way. So where you've got the grain coming off the end here, then you're fine to go straight into the bit that way, right? But when you're here, we do what we call climb cut, which is catch it here and let it pull back. It's a little weird if you've never done a climb cut because it wants to push it at you. It's different like if you've got it clamped down and you have a CNC or something going like that, because they're getting resistance from both sides of the cut. So you're, in essence, you're cutting the same no matter which direction you're going. But with a freehand thing like this, so it's a little hairy. I keep a lot of pressure on the table so that it doesn't jump as bad. If I have a lot, I don't try to take the full depth of the cut either. A lot of times I'll just skim along as it's climbing, what they call climb cutting, because it's pulling the work towards you. When you're feeding into the work, say here where you've got, anywhere if you feed the router into the work and you push against the direction of the cut, it's not pulling you, you're pushing against that direction. But in this case, when you're letting it follow that grain back so it's less likely to blow, it could still blow too. That's, if you've ever done any kind of router work, that it'll pop on you at any time without provocation. Even when you're doing everything right, it'll try to get away from you. I'm going to fire up the dust collector and the router, and we'll be on our way. This is when I wish I had a remote. So that's the route. Going to be doing a lot of sanding, taking the whole body down. Where I've got this chip right here, I'll probably dribble some super glue in there and push that back down. I'm pretty sure that where my neck template laid out, I've got some in here. I was planning on having to come back in here anyway and feather that into the neck. So I think, plus I'm doing a set, although this is below where my neck will set. So chances are though this is going to feather right off of here, so this isn't going to be an issue anyway. Should be just a little proud of where my neck ends up. It gives me some room to, built into the template, gives me some room to do that sort of nonsense. Anyway, so that's it. I'm gonna sign off with, I can't see my lens, so I really don't know what I'm filming here. Close enough. So right here, for one of my clamps, I got a little bit of denting in there. Now what I'll do before I get the iron out and try to steam it is I'll just spritz the whole back of this thing with the water bottle, and that will swell any little dents I may have gotten from the clamps. So I'm checking the back out pretty closely to make sure I don't have any others. Looks like I might have a little, I think that might just be a little bird's eye thingy in the grain there. So but if I just randomly spritz the whole back side of this, it'll catch something I may not be able to see. Plus we got a whole lot more sanding to do before this is over, so it's not going to be an issue at this point. Anyway, I've been carving on this body with the angle grinder with a 36-inch sanding disc in it, 36 grit, not inch. And not really I freehanded a previous guitar, and I didn't have anything I was specifically after with that, so it was all good. Carved a Les Paul before that. So anyway, this is another freehand. And what I did, I knew how much I wanted to take, how far I want to go down to. So I ran tape around it, and then I thought, well, I like a nice solid ledge. So I went ahead and ran around the top with a binding router bit, with the bearing and the bit. And then just, went to my deepest cut. And so I have this solid, hard ledge. I'm not sure. I had the camera set up for the close-up, so I don't want to get ready to do this. I'm not sure you can see there's a hard edge there. I've already carved down close to that edge. And there again, this is very rough, and it's going to have to be scraped and hand sanded and all that before it's not even close to being finished. So this, of course, will swell up out of here and smooth out. I want the top of the guitar where the bridge lays and where the pickups are going to be. I want that to be flat. So I'm keeping my carve down here out of that, well away from my pickups. Also, the top will be the same thing. I've already taken a little bit of a, with a plane, off the front of the guitar for the neck angle. And there's very, very little neck angle on this. I blocked up at the bridge and ran across it with my number 8, rather large hand plane, to get that angle. Yeah, I'm not going to have the fretboard laying right on the top, so it's not super critical that it's the exact angle. Just wanted to get some of this edge work down before I did the carve here, so I don't have as much to carve up to right here where it's real close. I've got that notch running right around here in the cutaway as well, and I might try that a little bit with the angle grinder, but it's so close to my pickup ring here. Unless I decide to go no rings, which I may decide at any second because I'm not 100% sold on it. I just drew the rings on in case I wanted to go that route. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp it back down to the bench and do a little bit of carving. I'm not going to try to carve this whole thing on camera, strictly because it's just a whole lot of noise, and it'll probably get fast forwarded through anyway. So I'm going to carve a little bit just to give you the idea of what I'm doing here. And past that, just going to do the rest of it. I also don't plan on carving all of it necessarily, like up on this radius here and rolling everything over, because I want to have a nice flat work surface to do my mortises when I do my pickup cavities and all that stuff. So I don't want to have stuff in the way. I'm going to go ahead and put the dust collector on, get my dust mask back on, got my earplugs in. about as far as I'm going to go with this until I get my pickup cavities in and know exactly what I'm doing. Let's see here. All right, so as you can see, it doesn't take very long to do that. So I've just gone around this whole edge here. This is my control cavity hole right here. Might have gotten a little close for that, but I don't plan on putting anything except the nut on there, so as long as I just roll over smoothly, I'll be good. I really want to go straighter into this, and I may do that with a scraper. Have a little more control that way, and just kind of dish that in a bit more, dish into it, and then come up and over. There's nothing wrong with the way it is if it's smooth and it all blends and feels good. It'll all be good. So anyway, that's as far as I'm going to take the car right now. This part up here where I stopped is obviously there's going to be a neck pocket taken out of here, so there's no worries there. This I'm going to do probably by hand with a rasp down in here so that I can have really good control over that where I'm blending into this cutaway here. And what I was trying to yell while I was had the machine running was that you can see the line on the back here. Something I do if I don't have a neck through design, any set neck or bolt on, I have a relief in the back, so that's going to be cut, down from the back, so that the heel, the block here when you have your neck in here isn't so huge that you don't have good access. So that's cutting out, so that circle you saw in the back down to this line will be coming out. That'll be a relief in there, and then the neck pocket will be down to about the bottom where that tape is at, and then also the neck will go all the way back under the pickup cavity into that area, so you have lots of gluing surface, even though this side of the neck will be exposed because there's no pocket to hold it, like you would have with a bolt-on, or in a set neck situation like you have. Get back here in the light. Set neck situation like you have with a Les Paul, the mortise is narrower than this side. It comes in from both sides, and the fretboard lays right on top of the guitar. That way you have glue surface here, but when you run your tenon all the way back into here, you're gonna have all that bottom and side glue, and then gluing in here as well. No problem with a neck set like that. So anyway, that's where it's at right now.